Welcome back, and today's topic is on transitions. And by the end of this video, you should be equipped with a very powerful tool that is readily available at home to start right away. And in the following, I will be listing some of the challenges children with autism face, and if that's your child and you resonate with it, then stay tuned because this tool is definitely going to empower you. So, does your child actually struggle to move from one activity to another? For example, maybe from playtime to mealtime? Or do they struggle to disengage from a preferred activity, such as they are lining up their favorite toy, to pausing to greet and say goodbye or hello to somebody, even when prompted? Or have a meltdown when there's unplanned change in their routines. So for example, your child's schedule placed, okay, after homework they get to go to the playground, but then suddenly there's a downpour. So plans change, they can only stay at home and perhaps do something at home. Lastly, does your child struggle from going from one place to another? So for example, leaving the house to school in the morning or coming back. You are not alone. Transitions are difficult. So why are transitions so difficult for our children with autism? Transitions can be especially difficult because for their need of predictability, they need to know what's going to happen next. Secondly, for our children with autism, most of them struggle with auditory processing, and that's the ability to be able to understand verbal instructions. And because they are unable to understand, then they do not know what's going to happen next, and if we are just going to tell them verbally, then they might not be able to accept the change at that point of time. Anxiety also often arises when they are faced with new tasks. So for example, they struggle to break down the task and therefore they don't know where to begin. So let's say you give them the task of, okay, you need to go and wash your hands. But if they are unable to break down the task and it's new to them, they don't know where to begin, and that's when you see that they will have a bit more resistance towards it. Additionally, challenges with social awareness can make it harder for them to recognize cues that signals transitions. So for example, if you see over here, there's a lightning alert and perhaps everybody is starting to leave the swimming pool, but your child in that case might not be able to take that social cue or be able to see what everybody is doing or be aware what everybody is doing. They see it, but they are not aware why they are doing it. Therefore, it might be a bit more difficult for them to leave the pool at that point of time. Lastly, is their deep attachment to routines, making spontaneous changes very difficult for them to navigate. So now let's take a look at what research say about transitions. Hatter and colleagues have done a research and they have confirmed that transitions are especially challenging for individuals with autism, so often leading to behaviors like aggression and tantrums. So as parents, I know it's natural that we want to shield our child from distress, but we also need to bear in mind that we cannot just pull them out from the social norms. And other researchers have found that a child's kindergarten day spent in transition is about 11% of their time, all the way to 25% of their time. So, if avoiding it is not an option and this is a battle we must face, then let's be equipped to face this battle so that we can do it more successfully. This tool is called the timer. So why is timer so powerful? Timer can increase predictability and make sense visually so they can see an abstract concept, which is time, which in turn reduces anxiety and transition timings. So basically, if your child is able to see and make sense of time, then instead of saying a few minutes, which can be very confusing for them, then it would ease their anxiety and be able to transit more smoothly. So research has also found that warnings and auditory cues can improve transitions. Auditory cues such as maybe the sound of the timer, let's say after looking at a countdown and then it starts to ring, that's your auditory cue. Instead of giving a 2 minutes verbal warning, can reduce transition times and disruptive behaviors, supporting the predictability. So there are many types of timer that I've found effective and also proven by researchers to be effective. So you might be thinking, okay Athena, since now there's 3 timers, which is the kitchen timer, the visual timer, the smartphone timer, which is the best? I would say there's no best. The best is the one that you get your hands on and start using them and your child actually understands the concept of the timer. So over here we can see the kitchen timer. This is not sponsored, but the affordable choice that if you're residing in Singapore, one of the more affordable choice is getting it from Daiso. So Daiso do have kitchen timers. And then secondly is a visual timer. This is especially helpful if your child have not learned to read the time. They can just look at the color code and then they will see that the time is slowly reducing and that's the amount of time they have left. Lastly is your smartphone. I think all of us have this option. I love this option because it's very portable and it's convenient. With all of that information, we're going to talk about how to use. So over here, your child has a need for a transition. So for example, you ask your child to pick up his toys and come to the table to eat. We need to bear in mind that the bigger the transition means we need to give them longer time to adjust. You cannot just last minute and tell them, okay, 1 minute and then you have to come. Okay, so we are looking at 15 to 30 minutes. Next, if it's a smaller transition such as work and break time and they already have established that routine that, okay, after break I have to come back to work, then we can use a shorter transition time. So we're looking at 2 to 5 minutes. Next, show your child the timer and involve him or her in pressing the start button of the timer. Remember, do not press for them. Do not just say, okay, you got 3 minutes, timer starts now, and then you press and then you just walk away. What we want them to do is to get them involved so that they are aware of what's going on and also to be able to see it visually. Okay, next, we give your child space. Don't press the timer and sit there and stare at them. So you can leave them to what they are doing and give them personal space and let them feel comfortable until the timer rings. Then you bring your child to the timer or the timer to your child. It depends on whether they are able to disengage at that point of time. Then get him or her to press stop. Use a visual after that to pair with the timer. If your child is able to read, remember we can do scripting. So you can use a visual. Let's say they press stop, then you show the visual. Keep. Yeah, so that's when they know what is expected after the timer rings. And then reinforce your child when your child performs the expected behavior. So if your child still doesn't do what's expected, he may not have understood the assignment yet. So you need to try to model the action for him to follow. So in this case, you want him to keep. You can initiate, okay, look, keep. Then you start putting the blocks into the bucket. Then gesturally prompt him to continue the action. Let's recap. So there's a need for a transition. You show your child the timer and involve him or her in pressing start. Give your child space. When the timer rings, bring the child to the timer or the timer to your child and then press stop. Use visuals to pair with what is expected and then reinforce. So we are not going to be biased here and there are some limitations of using the timer. And research has found that if the problem is due to uncertainty, so like the predictability, then using a timer would be very, very helpful. But if there's a struggle in the transition due to, let's say they just don't want to move towards the aversive task, like let's say writing, okay, then advanced notice might or might not help in helping them with the transition. It might help to a certain extent, but not fully. So if there's any more questions, feel free to scan the QR code over here and contact us. We will be happy to answer all your questions. Otherwise, go ahead and execute the timer 2 and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.